The detective walked through the muggy street. This was the second time in the past month that he traveled to London. His attempts of keeping the journalist away from his investigations resulted fruitless. They wouldn't stop until they got information firsthand for another sensationalist article. Another body has been found. Another prostitute has been brutally taken away from the streets. Is this a mass murder or something worse? Detective AK, as he had asked his co-workers to call him, bundled up in his overcoat, trying to keep himself warm from the cold. He knew humans were very quick to reach conclusions when murders like these ones took place. However, this time it was different. Nobody was scared because the target was prostitutes. Those women weren't grieved or missed. As unfair as it seemed, he wasn't surprised. After years of walking through a nearly immoral life, he knew morals and their ways. Detective AK, a young boy yelled from the other side of the alley, moving his hands vigorously as if his high-pitched voice wasn't enough to catch his attention. AK walked towards him, relieved that his carriage was ready and he could get out of there. The young boy greeted him with a big smile and let his wolf cub-like fangs show. Suddenly, he became serious and started sniffing him like a hound smelling a hare's fresh trace. "You are going to have to change your clothes, they stink," exclaimed the wolf boy. AK inspected his overcoat, curious, and approached the boy, his face decorated by a half grin. "Caro amico, I'm always willing to pay a couple of pounds, but if you are this reckless, showing off fangs and all..." He came closer to the voice. "The metropolis will know who took those potions from that old witch," he whispered. The wolf boy opened his grey eyes wearily and ran towards the carriage that was parked at the other side of the street. He went on the driver's seat and waited for indications. AK hoped on the carriage where a man in dark blue suit and black top hat was waiting for him. He was part of the same division as him, though he was in charge of keeping humans away from magic matters. They started moving in silence through the very crowded streets until the man spoke. "Did you find anything?" The detective rubbed his hands together to warm them up. "It was quite a messy scene," he said, crossing his arms. "However, I can assure you whatever is causing such chaos isn't human." The man turned at him astonished. "It is true this world is changing, but the fact that something not human is out there freely killing prostitutes makes me think we shouldn't investigate this without talking to them. We should go back to the consulate and report your findings." AK laughed out loud. "My dear Louis, do you by any chance know why I'm in charge of this kind of investigations?" he said in his very Italian accent. The man beside him remained quiet. AK laughed again. "I've seen enough of this bureaucracy. If you want to get a place in the human world and respect in the magical world, sometimes it's better to deal with those in power after the job is done," he added ironically. They arrived at the Great Northern Hotel where the detective was staying. Louis waved a very low-key goodbye. Before leaving, AK smiled at the wolf boy and threw a couple of pounds his way. "Buy yourself something nice to eat and stop stealing," he threatened in a friendly voice and walked away. The detective entered the hotel, addressed a flirty smile to the lady at the lobby, and headed to his room. He could still feel the essence of whatever was responsible for the murders. It wasn't uncommon for demons to roam on Earth. Many of them stayed unfed from human emotions. However, a demon killing humans meant he was stronger, and he would be busy hiding not only from the journalists, but humans in higher positions who would benefit from the killer's hunting. AK took off his waistcoat and let his body sink into the bed, trying to stay focused. Though he was used to violent crimes, something in these ones was different. There was a knock on the door. He saw his pocket watch. It was already past midnight. Without hesitation, he opened the door, only to find no one on the other side. Only a piece of paper was left at his feet. It was a letter. "I saw you. You know who I am. Come to St. Mary before dawn. If you don't come, London's streets will be covered in corpses by sunrise." The detective shoved the paper in his pocket. He aimed for his hat and grabbed a thicker coat. It would take him a good 20 minutes to get there, and this winter in London had been colder than other years. He hurried down Whitechapel Road. There weren't a lot of people on the streets. That gave him the opportunity to use a portal once he was close by. In seconds he was at the entrance of the church. The doors creaked open. The place was empty and fairly dark, except for some candles that were still lit up. AK entered quickly but confidently, his energy flowing easily through his fingertips, the power of water flowing as if his blood was one with his element. Abruptly, the candles turned off, and the aura in such a sacred place became darker, colder. AK let his own energy flow into a sword made out of water and remained still. From the shadows, a man appeared. He couldn't be more than 30 years old. His face was so human that the detective thought not a single person would suspect of his real nature. For him, it was very evident. The way his eyes were shining in the dimness of the night, the way the air and his own energy responded to his presence spoke of something evil. Though to his own surprise, he was a hybrid and not a demon. "You came," the man said, smiling. "I'm a man that values good manners and punctuality. I could never keep you waiting after such a pleasant invitation," AK replied gracefully. The man frowned. "You think it's funny? Maybe I should start slaughtering your children instead," he added. "Fine. Scusami," AK answered, placing a hand on his chest as if meaning it. "I just thought you'd be a demon, and I came wearing my sword and all," he added jokingly, knowing he would make his enemy enraged. His words had the effect he was hoping for, and the shadows started to take the shape of scorpions creeping towards him. They were quite big, their red eyes beaming in the dark. AK wielded his water sword, managing to cut several of them in half. The next attack was more powerful than the first one, their stingers aiming at him. One of the creatures managed to climb up the wall and jumped on AK's back. He barely dodged the attack. The scorpion's stinger left a cut on his left shoulder, but didn't succeed in injecting his venom. "You were so full of yourself coming on your own, and now this church will be your tomb," said the man. The detective took off his coat and set it to the side. "It is cold outside. My body was so frozen trying to get here. Now that the warm-up is over, we can begin our real fight," he added mockingly. The hybrid let his power gush throughout his body, his limbs deformed as well as his whole body transforming into the bigger and uglier version of the creatures he had just sent AK's way. With amazing speed, he attacked the detective. The tip of the stinger was as sharp as the blade of a sword. AK stopped in his own weapon and stumbled a couple of steps back. "As you can see, these beauties are the predators and I'm their king. The taste in those humans' insides are our favorite meal," the man said in a deep voice that sounded more like a growl. "Lovely," AK replied sarcastically. "Not my type of feast, I must confess." The detective waved his water sword and hit the creature on one of the claws, slitting it from his body. The limb fell to the floor, spraying oozy black blood that tinted the white walls of the church. "You are going to pay for this, all of you magical creatures and humans. The race of the demons will rise again, just like their father dreamed of. Thanks to him, others like me have been able to enter this world, and we shall take his side," the hybrid condemned. AK felt his body tense. He had heard something like that before. Demons threatening to walk among humans once more. The detective unleashed his energy, making his sword seem almost real, the water energy flowing through it, freezing into a sharp blade. He sprung at the hybrid, and with a well-aimed movement of his sword, sliced the giant scorpion in half. In the middle of the dark puddle of blood, The hybrid's body changed back to his human form. AK stepped close and raised his sword over his head. The man smiled, his face lit up by the moonlight reflected on the detective's blade. "You've seen hell. That hell will walk this world soon enough, and you will be his prey," he said right before AK brought his sword down. The doors of the church opened before he could kill him, and 5 men came in. They were dressed in their uniforms, agents from the consulate. "Thank you, detective. We'll take it from here," one of the agents said while taking a rope from his belt and tying it around the hybrid's hands. The man screamed in pain as soon as the rope touched his skin. "They must have been charged with magic to restrain the criminals," AK guessed. The detective grabbed his coat absent-mindedly, while reviving memories he thought were to remain buried in the past. If what the Scorpion said was true, and Louis' fears were real, he would have to face the past again in the near future. On his way out, he ran into Louis. The man opened his mouth to say something, but AK interrupted him, placing a hand on the man's shoulder. "I guess you were right. We'll see hell soon enough. Meanwhile, take care," he added, and walked away.